Welcome back to the Barrel Talk Podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It. The draft is in a couple of days. This is going to be coming out right after we did another mock draft where we did a bunch of trades throughout the first round to kind of shake things up, do a different look on everything, see teams trading up, trading down, trading out of picks. We just did that, but this is going to be my final full first round mock before the NBA draft on Wednesday and Thursday night. But with that getting into this, I do think I've had a lot of fun doing a lot of these mock drafts. But this is going to be a very, very hard draft to predict. I'm super excited to see some of the player movement that could go down on Wednesday and Thursday. But before we get into my final NBA mock, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, helps out a ton. If you're an audio listener, please make sure to give it 5 stars. Thank you guys for showing love on the audio side of things. But without further ado, we can get right into it. Atlanta Hawks, number 1 overall pick, a very confusing team that's had a lot of rumors. I felt like Alex Sarr was the no-brainer pick. But with the reports coming out last week that he hasn't worked out with the team, makes me think they're going in a different direction. Now, do I think they should go Reshad Shea? No. But with no trades that we just did in the previous mock that we did, that will be up on the channel prior to this one, I just think they're in a weird spot because you have Jalen Johnson, but do you think Jalen Johnson could possibly play the 3 for you? You still have DeAndre Hunter under contract. I've seen Donovan Clingan mocked, and with the possible department of Clint Capella, I think that's where they go. I think Donovan Clingan is going to go number 1 overall just because I think it makes the most sense. I think Reshad Shea is kind of a weird fit because you still have DeAndre Hunter, and I don't know what his value is on the trade market, and you still have Jalen Johnson. I do think Donovan Clingan could be a really, really good fit, a true, real rim protector for the Atlanta Hawks. I just think it's a little rich at 1 with some of the offensive upsides that you can get from an Alex Sarr or Reshad Shea. But I think Donovan Clingan, from what I've seen, it just makes the most sense. And I feel like with all the teams that are trying to trade up to get him, I think this is the no-brainer pick that Donovan Clingan is going to go number 1 to the Atlanta Hawks. It just makes the most sense. Now with the Washington Wizards, this is going to fall right into their lap. They have a big time need at the center position. So they're going to go ahead and take Alex Sarr. This just makes absolute sense to them. He can be a perfect kind of actual building block piece for the Wizards, who kind of don't really have that guy yet. I know the Wizards still need to address the playmaking position. They have another first rounder this year, and they could have the ability to trade Kyle Kuzma to try to go get a point guard in there, or be able to go on free agency and make some moves out that way. So now, Houston Rockets, they have the 3rd overall pick. So looking at this, like, if you're Houston, where do you go? You were in the talk for Donovan Clingan. He's not there anymore. I didn't really like the Donovan Clingan mocks because you already have Steven Adams and Sengun, who I feel like play a perfect kind of 1-2 punch with Sengun starting, and then you bring in a bruiser like Steven Adams off the bench. So I'm interested to see where you go here because you have a bunch of forwards. I think they just go a route. Like, I see Reshad Shea falling. It's kind of similar to my first mock, but I think fit-wise, looking at what is already on the Rockets and Jabari Smith and how they're trying to kind of compete right away, I think they definitely just need spacing, and I think they're just going to go with somebody like Reed Shepherd, somebody who can play in a bunch of different lineups for them, and somebody who can really play off and thrive off of like a Sengun. So I got Reed Shepherd there kind of being that perfect floor spacing guard for them that they kind of need next to a Fred VanVleet, even if they're not playing on the court together. Having Reed Shepherd coming off the bench year 1 to possibly even in the future replace a Fred VanVleet down the line. And Houston is in the realm to making a bunch of different moves. I would actually be surprised if they do pick here at 3 because of all the rumors and trade talks that they're being involved in. Now with the San Antonio Spurs, 4th overall pick, I think Reshad Shea just makes so much sense here. Pairing him up with Wemby for the future just makes the most sense for me. It's kind of weird. I've seen a lot of mocks where Reshad Shea goes 1, but if you're Atlanta, it doesn't make sense. Like, looking at some of this draft, like mocks and everything else, some teams, like some mocks have like teams going more so the best available, but in a team like the Hawks, like having the number 1 overall pick and say they don't trade it, Donovan Clingan, it should be the selection there, right? Especially if they haven't worked out Alexander Sarr yet. And I feel like if he hasn't worked out with them already, they're just not going to pick him. So Donovan Clingan just makes sense. Sarr dropping into the Wizards' lap, that makes sense for them. Reed Shepherd fits more with Houston and what they need in shooting and spacing right now than a Reece Shea does, because they already have a Jabari Smith, a Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason. So, like, in their forward spot, Dylan Brooks. So it's going to be hard for Reece Shea to even find playing time, I feel like, in that roster, in that mold. Pairing him up with Wemby in that front court for the future, you're solidified in your front court for the future. You probably won't have to touch that front court like for the next 10, 15 years, depending on how it goes. So now looking at Detroit Pistons, number 5 on the clock. I just think they got to go more NBA ready. In the mock trades, I had them trading down. But if they're in this, staying with the 5th overall pick, I think Montes Buzelis has a ton of upside. He can kind of, the only thing that's keeping him out of like being the number 1 overall pick is the shooting ability. And I think he has good form and everything. He just didn't really shoot the ball that well last year. That could be used because it is the G League Ignite. But I feel like he's a super high upside guy that can kind of be that 1 and 2 next to Cade Cunningham. Now, Charlotte Hornets, I've had almost the same guy mocked here for countless times. Ron Holland, I just think it's a no-brainer pick to pair him up in the forward position with a Brandon Miller, have him play in transition with a LaMelo Ball. He already has NBA-ready defense. So looking at that, that's somebody they need, somebody who can really kind of replace that kind of Miles Bridges role. Maybe not offensively in Miles Bridges, but defensively he can kind of really be better and fit next to what this team was wanting to do going forward. Now with Portland Trailblazers, 7 and 14. Team that already has a lot of young talent. I've seen Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, Malcolm Brogdon, all in trade rumors. So looking at this, if you're the Portland Trailblazers, I'm going upside pick here. I think you could use another real 3 or 4 depending on what you do with a Jeremy Grant. But I think Cody Williams, super high upside pick right here. He got it. You give him a lot of time to really develop next to a Scoot and a Shaedon Sharpe. He has all the intangibles to be a great two-way player in this league. So now Spurs back on the clock. They got Reece Shea at 4 falling into their lap. What makes sense for them here? They need to go guard Stephon Castle. Boom. Spurs home run in this mock draft, which I think they're going to have a home run pick unless they package both to move up to 1. I think having Reece Shea land in their lap is huge, and I think having Stephon Castle at 8, WW draft for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, Memphis Grizzlies were not able to move up. And get Donovan Clingan. So no trades in this mock. I did have them moving up. That's what the trade I had in the mock trades draft. So I had them trading up with Houston to get Donovan Clingan at 3. This is a team that has Luke Kennard on a team option. Could bring him back, use that in a trade for possibilities because I've heard a lot of rumors. They need shooting badly. They also could use a backup guard. I'm pretty sure you're probably running Ja, Smart, Bane, putting Bane at the 3. Then you have like Vince, G.G. Jackson, kind of in that forward realm. They need a big and a guard. I think you could possibly maybe address the guard position because I feel like at this pick right here, you can go get like Jamal Shed, somebody who's just defensive minded, maybe might not have the offensive capabilities that you would want right away in the NBA, but him on the defensive end could give you just a pest defender off the bench in Memphis if it's what they want to do. So I think you got to go with some shooting and some scoring here. And I think you got to go Dalton Connect, somebody who can kind of be that, 3 to kind of take pressure off of Desmond Bane, really being the only shooter, I guess, on the team, other than Luke Kennard. Don't know what they're going to do with him. Dalton Connect is a proven scorer. I feel like he's going to come into the league and be able to score right away. And you're putting him next to guys like a Jaren Jackson Jr., who's a defensive player of the year. Like, that's the one thing about Dalton Connect coming out of college is his defense, but I feel like you put him on a team with other good defenders, I think he'll fit in just fine. And this is a Memphis team that just really could use somebody off the bench that can just go get you a bucket, somebody who can play off the ball really, really well and just be able to find his own shots in the offense. Gotta go Dalton Connect right there. Number 10, Utah Jazz on the clock. Nikola Topic, no-brainer. If he falls to this spot, I feel like this is one of the only teams that is kind of perfectly fine with him not playing much of his rookie year due to the partially torn ACL. So I have Nikola Topic going to the Utah Jazz at 10. I think it's a no-brainer pick for them right there. Chicago Bulls just had the Josh Giddey, Alex Caruso trade. Possibilities of Alonzo Ball being bought out. They're in a tough position to where, like, what do they do? I don't know who's on this roster. In a week's time, I don't know what the Bulls are going to be looking like. So looking at this, I think they could possibly be in the realm of going somebody with some upside and saloon, because I just feel like you could go big here. Don't know what you're going to do with Vucevic. Andre Drummond is a free agent, though. Yep, I think they go big here. I'm going to have them go big. I see Kel'el Ware, Kyle Filipowski, Yves Missi could kind of give them an interesting look, because you still have Vucevic and you still have his space and capabilities. Or are you gonna just take the shot and kind of build for the future? I'm kind of in between Yves Missi and Kel'el Ware. Let me know in the comments which one you would choose in this. I'm thinking they do still have Vucevic on the roster. I think they could use somebody that's just going to be a rim running big that can play above the rim. Yves Missi going above Kel'el Ware. I'm going to go Kel'el Ware. I think that makes the most sense. I think he kind of gives them more offensive versatility with his ability to possibly space the floor in the NBA. We'll see how that turns out. But I feel like he's somebody that could be a replacement for Vucevic. And Vucevic, you could possibly have some lineups where he's at the 4 spacing the floor rather than the 5. OKC here at 12, they could go big. You don't have Josh Giddey anymore, so you have Alex Caruso here. So SGA, Caruso, Lou Dort, J-Dub, Chet. I think you could still go. You still have Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace. I think you got to find somebody to kind of replace that Gordon Hayward role, because of how active I've seen OKC in trying to get a big through trade or free agency. I think they're going to go ahead and kind of address that need that Gordon Hayward couldn't really provide for them. I see Tristan Da Silva right here. I really, really like that fit. NBA ready guy who can just fit into that rotation perfectly. That's where we're going to go. Might be a little bit of a reach, but Tristan Da Silva, NBA ready guy who can come in and do all the things that Gordon Hayward was supposed to do in OKC. Sacramento Kings, they're up right now. I think they could go a number of different ways. You have Malik Monk back. Who knows what they're doing with these two guys right here, because they could package these contracts up and go make a move. I really, really like them going maybe a guard. But I think they need a little bit more versatility at that big spot. Somebody that could possibly space the floor, play that kind of next to Sabonis and be able to play next to Sabonis with his versatility. I'm going to go Tyler Smith. I think they take a chance here on somebody who can be very versatile in that front court position. Portland Trailblazers take Cody Williams at the 7th pick, wrapping around back to 14. They're in a position where they already have a lot and don't know what they're going to do this offseason, just going into the draft. I'm going to go Jacoby Walter here. I think with him, he can kind of be that kind of backup 2 to 3 role, depending on who's on this roster in a couple years. But the Portland Trailblazers are just kind of going for upside and talent. Jacoby Walter can kind of bring them that. So they're ending up with Cody Williams, Jacoby Walter. Pretty solid draft for the Portland Trailblazers. Miami Heat could go a number of different options here. I would love if they address the big man spot here, because you already have Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero. You could go guard. I've really only seen a lot of guards. I've seen a lot of Isaiah Collier, Devin Carter, some Jared McCain. I understand that. I could also see them going a big. I'm going to have them go guard, though. There's too many good guards on the board to pass up, and Terry Rozier only has 2 more years left on that contract. Who knows if Tyler Hero ever ends up getting traded or not. But it's kind of between Isaiah Collier or Devin Carter. I think Devin Carter is going to be better right away, which if this Miami team is running it back and looking to compete and make a deep playoff push, Devin Carter is a guy that feels Miami Heat and can play right away with how they do play. So looking at the 76ers, they're on the clock here. I think they could really just use a bucket getter off the bench, and I think Rob Dillingham does that for them. I think it's the perfect fit, especially with how I've seen Rob Dillingham fall in the past couple of weeks due to rumors about his ankle injury, and with how kind of scouts and GMs are kind of evaluating him as a player. I feel like he is kind of somebody that can be an Emmanuel quickly off the bench for the 76ers, because he doesn't have to start next to a Tyrese Maxey. And I feel like he can come off the bench and kind of be able to find his role as just a bench spark plug early in his career with a good Philadelphia 76ers team. So I think Rob Dillingham is a phenomenal pick here. LA Lakers, team that could use some shooting. I don't know what they're going to do with D'Angelo Russell. Could go big here as well, allowing AD to play more of a 5. I've seen a lot of Zach Edey mocks. I've seen Jared McCain mocks. Looking at this, they're going to need shooting. I think Jared McCain is just too good, and he fits too well with what this team wants to do. Being able to play off the ball, playing off of LeBron, can kind of be a better fitting piece than a D'Angelo Russell. I think Jared McCain goes to the Lakers at 17. Now with the Orlando Magic. This is an interesting spot because of all the possibilities and avenues they have to get better in free agency. But I feel like this guard spot, they need to address. I think Anthony Black could really be able to play 1 through 3 with his size and his versatility. But I think Cole Anthony is perfectly suited coming off the bench. And I think this is just too good of a position for the Magic to not just take Isaiah Collier here. I just feel like even if you take him and you're worried about a logjam, you can always just see how Anthony Black can play off the ball, which I feel like he can kind of mold himself into that role where he can play 1 through 3, but can be really good with the ball in his hands and can kind of be like a point forward in a way at that 3. But I just think Isaiah Collier, with his just pure upside and talent coming into the league, I think he's a great fit in Orlando for what they want to do. And you can't really pass up on him when he does fall this far in the draft, which I think could happen for him. Toronto Raptors at 19. This is a spot where you could have saw Isaiah Collier go, depending on what they do with Emmanuel quickly, if you see him more as a 2 or a 1. But I think they go and address the big position. I could see them going an upside pick, but I don't know what they're going to do with Scotty Barnes right here. So I'm going to have him going upside the big man pick. I'm going to have Yves Missi go because I do think Jakob Poeltl does end up getting traded this offseason, and he kind of fits the Toronto Raptors' new timeline and what they want to do. Now looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers' 20th overall pick. Who knows what this team's doing this offseason? They can go a number of different ways as well. They just need to go wing. I'm so shocked if they don't go wing, right? So shocked if they don't go wing. But it's like, who do they go here? I've mocked Terrence Shannon a ton. I see the potential Jalen Tyson could be interesting. They have to go wing here. They have to go wing. This is one of the positions where I'm like, if you don't go wing, it's like, that's kind of like a what are we doing kind of pick. I'm going to go with Jalen Tyson here. Somebody who can perfectly play off the ball to a guy like Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland who can kind of just fit that mold and kind of go into that role player of being able to play with a Strus and kind of flopping those kind of guys at your 3 position depending on what they do in free agency. 21, Pelicans have a lot to do in free agency. I'm going to go with Kyle Filipowski. I think his potential to possibly be a floor spacing big next to a Zion Williamson can give the Pelicans what they dream of having next to a Zion Williamson. And I think Kyle Filipowski, maybe if you get a big and go experiment with somebody else. I know I've had mock trades where like Clint Capella is the big, and if they go Kyle Filipowski, it's not that much pressure on him coming off the bench to a Clint Capella, but can still find his role and way in the league. I think Kyle Filipowski potentially could be that floor spacing big that the Pelicans have been needing that can also give you great rim protection. So now Phoenix Suns could go big, but I think they're going to go for a guard. So because I think they just need guard play. I just don't see a world where Tyler Kolek goes out of the first round. I think Tyler Kolek is the perfect point guard for the Suns, NBA ready, older guard, is the perfect guy that can just set guys like D-Book, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant up. And with how kind of hard it is to find really, really good playmaking guards that can kind of pseudo come off the bench and start for you, Tyler Kolek is going to be a gem in this draft. I know I've seen a lot of older guards just because they're older and they don't have that great upside fall on the first round. I think this is a home run pick for the Phoenix Suns if they do keep this pick in the draft. Milwaukee Bucks up with the 23rd overall pick. Could go a lot of different ways. I've seen rumors about Brook Lopez probably being traded. But they need a guard, man. I just feel like there's a lot of times where they have nothing creating off this bench at all. to where if you did like keep Brook Lopez and you didn't trade him and you kind of look to where you can upgrade the roster, I'm going to go with Bud Carrington, somebody who can kind of be that backup point guard that can just come off the bench and kind of run the show when Damian Lillard's on the bench, because I feel like without Dame in the game, there really is no perimeter shot creation outside of like playmaking wise at that point guard position. I feel like Bud Carrington kind of give you the both worlds of the playmaking and the scoring aspect of it, from getting you another like guy that can come off your bench and just give you a spark. Now looking at New York Knicks. I think they could go add some big man depth here. I really like Deron Holmes here because he can kind of give you more versatility depending on what they do with Mitchell Robinson and if they are able to keep Isaiah Hartenstein. I'm going to go with Deron Holmes with this first round pick for them. Obviously, I'm going to be surprised if they do pick here at 24 and 25. So I got right here, Deron Holmes here. Who do they go with? I think if I'm looking at it, Tibbs is going to go just a pure defensive guy. Worry about the shot in the offense later. I think Ryan Dunn goes here, and they end up with Deron Holmes and Ryan Dunn to kind of fill out that rotation there in New York. Now the Washington Wizards, they got Alex Arr with the second overall pick. Where could they go from here? Who knows what they're going to do with Kyle Kuzma? When you're looking at a lot of the point guards are kind of gone on this team, on the board actually. So looking at that, I just think they're in an interesting spot to where they could go an upside pick in Saloon and just move off of Kyle Kuzma and worry about their point guard position in free agency or through a trade. So I think they're going to go a high upside guy in Saloon who has the potential to be really, really good. But I think they're going to move Kyle Kuzma off, and I think Saloon is just a high upside pick, pairing him with Sarr in that front court, and you can kind of really experiment with Bilal and Denny and how they're so versatile. They can play a number of different positions, and Washington can have some really fun lineups in this next year. Now with the Minnesota Timberwolves, they need a bench spark. There's two guys that I really like here that I think are really, really suited for what they want to do. I really think that the shooting of Baylor Shireman can be fire for them. But I think Terrence Shannon gives them that two-way ability, and I feel like he fits what they want to do there. And I think Terrence Shannon, I know he's had the off-court stuff, and he beat the case with all of that. I just think he's too good of a player not to be in the first round. He is too good of a... Like, if I'm being honest, he is way too good of a player to even drop out of the top 20. But I know how NBA drafts work, and I think him going to Minnesota with Anthony Edwards and how they got everything building over there, he's a perfect two-way guy who can do everything coming off that bench on both sides of the ball. Denver Nuggets, they're in an interesting spot. I think they're in kind of the same boat where they need to spark off their bench. I see Johnny Furphy and Keyshawn George here, but I think those guys are still too raw. Baylor Shireman can kind of give me Joe Ingles vibes and kind of be a primary playmaker at certain times throughout stretches of the game, but who can be a knockdown shooter playing off of a Jokic and Jamal Murray off that bench, because when I look at that bench, they don't really have a ton of shooting. So looking at that, Baylor Shireman I would go with if I'm the Denver Nuggets. And now the Utah Jazz right here. I've heard a lot of talks about Walker Kessler probably being on the market, which is interesting. Utah's in a very interesting spot because you have Clarkson. I want to see who they move and who they blow it up with this offseason. But man, isn't this going to be interesting? I'm going to go with a wing here. I'm going to go with Keyshawn George here. High upside pick, so they end up with Topic and Keyshawn George in this draft. Now the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics are up on the clock. Who knows what they're going to do with Al Horford, if he's going to retire or not after winning a championship. They really just need to kind of fine-tune this bench. I love Peyton Pritchard off the bench, but outside of that bench unit's kind of a little lackluster. I don't know if they're going to keep Xavier Tillman, but they could use some more big man depth rotation. They could go a super, super fun pick in Zach Edey, because I feel like a lot of these guys on the board, I usually see them ending up with Ryan Dunn. Looking at this, what do they go here? Dadiet I've seen mocked a couple times just off the pure upside alone, but I think they're going to go more so NBA ready guy. I like Adem Bona here with his versatility. I just don't know what they're going to do with Al Horford. But with everything this team has going for them, they could try to look and get something different, something like an X Factor, and I think he's too good of a player to slide out of the first round. I'm going to go with something different. I haven't mocked it a ton before. I think Zach Edey could be a very, very interesting player for the Celtics. Gives them just a 7-3 guy off your bench that can really play perfectly. You have all the spacing in the world to make it work around him. And I think Joe Mazzulla, with how they have been able to run offensively, I think Zach Edey could really find his way and find his role on this team with how often Kristaps Porzingis has injuries and with the question with Al Horford if he's going to retire this offseason or not. So at the end of this first round, to wrap this up, I have Zach Edey going to the Boston Celtics. So wrapping up the first round of my last official mock going into the drafts on Wednesday. Donovan Clingan at 1 going to the Atlanta Hawks. Washington Wizards get Alex Sarr. Reed Shepard goes to the Houston Rockets. Zachary Richache goes to the San Antonio Spurs. Matas Buzelis goes to the Detroit Pistons at 5. Ron Holland goes to the Hornets at 6. Cody Williams at 7 goes to the Portland Trailblazers. Stephon Castle going to the Spurs at 8. Dalton Knecht going to the Memphis Grizzlies at 9. Topic at 11 going to at 10 going to the Utah Jazz. Khalil Ware going 11 to the Chicago Bulls. Tristan Da Silva at 12 going to the Thunder. 13, Tyler Smith to the Sacramento Kings. Jacoby Walter goes to the Portland Trailblazers at 14. Devin Carter at 15 goes to the Miami Heat. Rob Dillingham at 16 to the 76ers. Jared McCain 17 to the LA Lakers. Isaiah Collier to the Magic at 18. 19, Yves Missi to the Toronto Raptors. Jalen Tyson to the Cavs at 20. Kyle Filipowski to the Pelicans at 21. Tyler Kolek to the Suns at 22. Bud Carrington to the Bucks at 23. Deron Holmes at 24 to the Knicks. Ryan Dunn at 25 to the Knicks. Saloon to 26 for the Wizards. Terrence Shannon Jr. To the Wolves at 27. Baylor Shireman at 28 to the Denver Nuggets. Keyshawn George to the Jazz at 29. Zach Edey to wrap out the first round to the Boston Celtics at 30. But that's all I have for the final NBA mock draft going into the draft on Wednesday. I'll have a reaction to the NBA draft coming out after both days of the draft, kind of talking and recapping what went down during the draft. If it was a trade, if it was a right selection, if it was a reach, or if somebody fell that probably shouldn't have. There's probably going to be a lot of that going around after the first round for sure. But that's all I have for this episode. Let's talk about it. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Barrel Talk Podcast. Hope you see tune in to future episodes.